Hello and welcome to the 49ers First and 10 podcast presented by Cisco. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Brianna McDonald, and joining me is 49ers team reporter, Lindsay Polares. It's been a bit of a break since our last episode as the 49ers enjoyed their bye week and a huge win over the Dallas Cowboys in Week 8. San Francisco's 4-4 record is looking much better, and now it's time to turn the page and get back to business. Lindsay, before we dive into this week's practice, let's take a moment to look back at that big win over Dallas and riding that high into the bye week. What was the mood like around the team after a win and a week of rest?
Yeah, I think anytime that you can win against a very storied franchise like the Dallas Cowboys that have this historic postseason rivalry with the Niners, spirits are always going to be high. It was certainly a great way to send the team off into the bye week. And then I think, a little bit of rest and relaxation is never bad for anyone. So I think a lot of players took the opportunity to focus on recovery, spend some time away from the facility, and come back ready for the second half of the season. I think that bright and sunny disposition was only made better by the practice window for the NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Christian McCaffrey, being opened. He was placed on IR before the 49ers season opener against the Jets because of Achilles tendonitis. His presence certainly has been missed despite players really stepping up and filling the role in the ground game like Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero. But obviously you're going to be happy when you get one of the best, if not arguably the best. He was the best offensive player in 2023 back in the lineup. Obviously, we know all the good things about Christian McCaffrey. He was the Triple Crown winner in 2023. He is just a game planning nightmare for opposing teams. Everything he does is the gold standard. So I do really think that played a large part in the entire team just being very optimistic for the second half of the season. You heard players talking about it. Trent Williams was like, I'm just so happy for him to be able to be out on the practice field with the team and doing what he loves to do. And certainly, these first half of the season was tough for Christian McCaffrey to be able to get back into this position. So a hard fought battle. The team is hoping no setbacks, and there haven't been any up to this point, but it is a very much wait and see process. And we will learn more likely today when that final injury report comes out from head coach Kyle Shanahan around midday.
Yeah, it was a productive week, an exciting week for the team. The 49ers got back to work this week pretty early. They had a Monday bonus practice. That bonus practice was significant for the team because at the beginning of the week, we saw a few key players returning from injury, including Christian McCaffrey. Lindsay, can you tell us what else stood out from the team's first practice sessions back this week?
Yeah, so obviously practice window open for Christian McCaffrey. First time seeing him out on the field since being placed on IR on Monday, but he was also joined by a couple other players that were on the injured reserve list. John Feliciano had his practice window opened at the same time, so it was his first time back with the team. He suffered a knee injury during training camp, had to undergo surgery for it. So his return also welcomed. We heard from run game coordinator and offensive line coach Chris Forster saying that he is a veteran starting level player that is coming in a backup position, but to have that level of experience and skill to add depth back to that offensive line is a really, really huge positive. Again, he's working back in. This is his first week back. Same can be said for defensive lineman Yetur Gross-Matos. He had his practice window opened on Wednesday. He was placed on IR also with a knee injury. He's been limited for Wednesday and Thursday, but again, it just is a coming back to health for the 49ers, I think, was the theme of the week. So obviously very welcomed by everyone on the roster.
Absolutely. And Christian McCaffrey has been working his way back to full strength after being placed on IR earlier. And it sounds like McCaffrey's recovery is really starting to ramp up. He's not officially back yet, but being out there and running with the team, does it feel like we're on the verge of seeing him return pretty soon?
It certainly feels that way. And from the kind of check-ins, vibe checks we've had from head coach Kyle Shanahan, it does seem that he is tracking well. I think ultimately we will have a lot more clarity as to what Christian McCaffrey's status for week 10 will be. First, with that injury report, like I mentioned, coming today. And then typically teams make roster moves the day before a game. So we'll see what happens, right? He is still currently on that injured reserve list. The roster move really that was made, or the I guess roster move that was made, was that his practice window has been open. So the team has 21 days from when that window opens to activate him to the 53-man roster. So he is on the clock, and we will know a little bit more in these next 48 hours.
Yeah, no doubt. The return of McCaffrey could really make a difference as we head into a crucial second half of the season. Now, there are some new players spotted out at practice this week. First, the 49ers traded for defensive lineman Khalil Davis ahead of the NFL trade deadline. What do you know about Davis's skill set, and how do you see him fitting into this defensive rotation?
Yeah, so the 49ers again opted to make a move at the trade deadline. That's pretty characteristic of the John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan era of the last few seasons. This one was a depth move for that defensive line. I think what it shows you is that a lot of the reinforcements that the 49ers are going to get in the second half of the season are going to come from inside the building, but certainly Khalil Davis coming from the Houston Texans in exchange for a 2026 seventh round pick. They're just looking to bolster the defensive line. One thing we know about the 49ers is that they do like to keep a pretty consistent rotation on that D line. Davis is going to be able to provide just a little bit more manpower, depth on that D line to make sure everybody stays fresh in the second half of the season.
Absolutely. Also, Tashawn Gibson Sr. has re signed to the practice squad after spending some time in Jacksonville. Head coach Kyle Shanahan mentioned how they were always interested in bringing him back. What kind of impact does Gibson bring to the secondary, and what's his relationship like with the team given his previous stint in 2022?
Tashawn Gibson Sr. is somebody that was kind of like an instant success story, I would say, with the 49ers. He was actually signed as a veteran to the practice squad in 2022, right before the season kicked off. And it felt almost automatic. He was elevated to the 53-man roster and was a starting safety for the 49ers for the last two seasons. Definitely brings a veteran presence to that secondary. And I think, just adds again depth. I think we've seen a tremendous growth in Jair Brown. There definitely is additional need for depth and a veteran presence with Talanoa Hufanga. Also dealing with a wrist injury, so certainly a good thing to have him back on the roster and can be utilized whenever necessary. I think one interesting thing that came out of Thursday's practice is that we saw that safety Malik Mustafa, who has been a really great rookie draft pick for the 49ers, he actually got added to the injury report with a calf injury. We don't really have details on that, but again, especially when you have someone that undergoes an injury so close to game time, could be something that Tashawn Gibson Sr. has to step in. Again, we will know more about Mustafa's injury, his progress, and availability for week 10 coming up later today. So keep an eye out for that.
All right, yeah, and the 49ers will be traveling to Tampa Bay this Sunday to face the Buccaneers. Lindsay, what excites you about this contest? What are some of the biggest things the faithful should look out for in this matchup?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important to look out for is, first of all, this Tampa Bay team is in a bit of a desperate situation, right? They've lost their last three games, started off the season really strong, certainly have an elite quarterback in Baker Mayfield. However, his top two wide receiver options are not going to be out there for week 10. We had Chris Evans. He's expected to be out until after the team's week 11 bye. And then you've got Chris Godwin, who suffered an ankle dislocation earlier in the season. He is out. I think one receiver, well, he's his best pass catcher, I should say, to look out for is tight end Cade Otton. Definitely has become a top target for Baker Mayfield. 8 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown versus Kansas City on their Monday night game. But again, thinking about, coming off a short week, hosting the 49ers, who are well rested. One thing to note as well, 49ers secondary, really top tier. They are fourth best in the NFL. They're allowing less than 7 yards per attempt, holding wide receivers to the lowest completion percentage in the NFL. So I would say that's a matchup to look out for, and definitely an area where the 49ers can scratch out an advantage.
It sounds like another great opportunity for the 49ers to continue building momentum. We'll be keeping a close eye on that matchup for sure. And of course, we'll continue to follow updates on 49ers.com as we get closer and closer to this Sunday. That wraps up today's episode of First and 10 presented by Cisco. Tune in to the 49ers Buccaneers contest on Fox at 10 a.m. Pacific time this Sunday. Don't forget to subscribe to First and 10 presented by Cisco for more 49ers updates. Turn on the notifications for any breaking news, Move the Chains episodes, and thanks for tuning in.